As soon as you mention you struggle with pornography, all of the content and all the solutions are for people who are addicted. But addiction is a pretty strong word, and you may not feel like that word actually matches you perfectly. So, are you an addict or are you a compulsive user, an occasional user? How do you know the difference? And does it even really matter? We're going to unpack all of that today so that you can understand exactly where you are right now and what the solution should look like based on your position. Let's jump in. Now, before I start breaking all this down, I think this is going to be helpful for a lot of people because we hear about this kind of content, we hear about this question all the time is, how do I know if I'm addicted? And I don't really think I'm addicted, so do I really need some of the solutions that you're suggesting? I want to just mention really quick, you guys have been so good leaving ratings and reviews for this podcast. If you are listening online, and you haven't left a rating or review, I'm asking if you'd be willing to do that. We had hundreds of reviews on Apple in particular. They got wiped. I still don't know what happened, but we're trying to get back up to 100 5-star ratings and reviews to let other people know this is high quality content. If you'd be willing to leave us a rating or review on your platform, that would be amazing. And if you're watching on YouTube, drop me a comment below. How are you finding the video material so far? We're new kind of doing this content online here, and I love your feedback. Thank you guys. This all means the world to us. We want to make sure that this show gets better and better so that we can reach more people and then we can help more men change the world. And that's really what this is all about. So let's jump into it. You know, this actually this whole conversation that we're going to be having today is inspired by one of the guys on my marketing team who, after working with us for about 6 months, said, you know, I've noticed that when we use the word addiction or porn addict, a lot of people in our audience seem to write themselves off. Like, oh, that's not for me because I'm not addicted. I'm not an addict. And originally when he said that, I said, nah, you know, whatever. I mean, it was good. It was good insight. I didn't really pay much attention to it. But then we start to have more conversations with people who said, you know, Sathiya, I'm not really addicted to pornography. I've just struggled with it for a long time. I can't go a long time without it. I kind of plan my days around it, and you know, it's not as bad as so and so. And they literally would just list all the things that people say when they're addicted to something and all the criteria to mark an addiction. And they'd say, so I'm not really addicted. What should I do? And you know, I almost didn't really know what to say. I tried to fight back my smile and just, guide them a little bit. And I had another conversation with a friend last week. This is a different friend who has a gambling issue, and it was really interesting hearing him explain his situation. And he said all of the same things that I hear people say to justify their porn addiction, or not to justify, but to minimize their situation so that it's not an addiction. You know, I didn't actually spend that much money. I know people that have spent a lot more, and you know, I can still go longer periods of time. I just use it when I'm really stressed out, and you know, he's saying certain things like that that kind of let you go, bro. This is actually what an addiction looks like. You know, we all think people that are addicted are these bums that are on the streets that, you know, have these horrible childhoods and they have a certain look to them, when the reality is, you know, the people that are addicted to porn in our society are doctors and engineers and lawyers, accountants, athletes and actors, and you know, you name it, you know, any profession that you can think of, there's porn addicts in it. And so I say all of that to say to you, if you're trying to evaluate, you know, am I addicted or not? I want to say, well, I want to actually say a couple things. Number one, this is complicated on a clinical level, and that's where I think that's where people want to go in this conversation is like, just give me the diagnostic criteria, and then I can self-diagnose if I'm an addict or not. So this is complicated because the DSM-5, which is considered sort of the Bible of diagnosing medical issues, does not acknowledge pornography addiction. There's no mention of, there's mention of video game addiction, gambling addiction, and then of course all the substance addictions that we're familiar with, like alcohol and drugs. They mention all of those. They do not acknowledge pornography addiction. And it was heavily contested at the time when that book was published. And right or wrong, I think they were wrong. It doesn't really matter. But it is partially why there's not a high prevalence of people diagnosing pornography addiction in North America, in America in particular, because the DSM-5 doesn't include it, and the DSM-5 dictates, you know, what can be insured and what's billable for insurance companies, and that obviously drives a lot of the medical world. And so, anyways, I digress. Complicated. In research, you will often see the term PPU, which is problematic porn use. And I like that language. I don't think it's the sexiest term in the world. Do you have problematic porn use? And how do you identify I'm a problematic porn user? Like it doesn't, again, it doesn't really roll off the tongue, doesn't make sense, or doesn't have that smoothness to it. But actually, as a term, it is helpful for us, and it's probably a better way to look at it. So rather than asking, are you an addict? Because we can go down there, and I already kind of listed like some examples of things that are actually a pretty good indicator you likely are. Maybe the question we need to ask is your usage of pornography problematic? Is it causing problems in your life? And that's a yes or no question, my friend. That is not like a, well, technically it's not really that big of a deal, or it sort of depends on what time of the year. It kind of depends on, well, what constitutes pornography? Like, come on, give me a break. Is it causing problems in your life, in your mental health, in your focus, in your relationships, in your connection to God, in your productivity, in your habits? In the way that you show up at work and in your community? Is it affecting your ability to pursue your dreams and achieve a goal in life? What's the effect of it? And is it problematic? Yes or no? And the answer starts to surface very quickly. Now, if you answered yes, which I'm assuming if you made it this far into the episode, you probably did answer yes. I want to let you know that you're in exactly the right place. This content that we create here, on YouTube and on the podcast, is for people who have a problematic usage of pornography. And whether you're addicted in every sense of the word, whether you really just use it occasionally, but it's still having a negative effect on your life, as long as its usage is problematic, there's ways for you to grow, improve, and develop. I got to speak with Dr. Robert Glover's community. It's called Integration Nation. Dr. Robert Glover is the author of Nowhere Mr. Nice Guy. Incredible guy, really, really incredible community. It was one of my favorite community calls that I've done outside of my own, because I love my community, Deep Clean Inner Circle and Signature. I love those guys the most. But I was fielding questions, and somebody said, I used to watch pornography a lot, and I felt very guilty about it. A lot of it was driven by religious shame and, kind of growing up in fundamental Christian environments. And so I've really broken out of that, and I'm really not watching pornography nearly as much anymore. Should I still be concerned about it? It was a good question, and I kind of said yes. You should. I don't think there's a healthy amount of pornography that's really going to serve you, generally speaking, especially if you have a history of bad usage of it. And then we got a bit more into the weeds, and because he asked a question back, and we're going back and forth, and I said, well, wait, I backtrack. I should have asked this at the beginning. How often are you watching pornography now that things have gotten better? And he said, oh, probably about, once every week or 2 weeks. And I'm like, oh, bro, come on. Oh, okay. So you're basically, you have taken a good sized step forward. You went from watching every single day to watching, every week to 2 weeks. But does that mean that you don't have any problematic porn use in your life? No, far, 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 far from it. And so again, I think sometimes in this conversation, we try to sort of just write our situation off. Like we want to either be the exception, or we're not as bad as so-and-so, or look at how far I've come. I used to be addicted, but I mean, I only need it weekly now. That's not an addiction, right? And I think all of these things kind of just prove how addicted we are. Anytime we sort of need to talk ourselves out of the severity of a situation, or we need to say, I'm not actually an addict, I'm just kind of an occasional user. It's sort of like, well, if you're doing that to just justify or trying to kind of get away with it, it might actually just reveal how much you enjoy that pornography to begin with and how problematic your usage likely is. Now, where does this leave all of us? What it means is if you have problematic use of pornography, which I think most people listening to this show do, you can take all of the solutions we provide here very, very seriously. Okay, this is not just for people that are, hyper addictive and those incels, social outcasts, weird looking dudes with the scraggly hair and the pedophile mustache. Like this is not what a porn addict looks like. It's not what a problematic pornography user looks like either. It doesn't matter how you slice it or how you want to look at it. If your usage is causing issues in your life, then you're worthy of a solution and you qualify. Okay, and don't wait until things get really bad, or don't wait until your situation looks as bad as, sketchy Bob down the road who's got a really, really bad life because of his porn use. Just take it seriously, because if you have problematic porn use, you can do something about it, and you can reverse 99.99% of those effects in a much shorter span of time than you think. If you have the right help, you have the right support, and you have the right system, that's what this show is all about. So make sure that you're tuned in here. And if you got some value from our content today, make sure you leave a rating or review on your podcast platform. Or if you're watching online, drop me a comment below. I want to hear, what did you think about this episode? Give me some feedback so we can keep making this stuff better for you guys. Hey, much love to all of you. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one.